Fireweed Zinc, Brandon Macdonald. Really excited to have him join us here because we're not just a gold conference. Fireweed Zinc, as the name suggests, is more of a base metals company, obviously. They're up in the Yukon, and keep in mind, we are shareholders of the company. So we're a bit biased, but we're extremely excited to have him here. So, Brandon, please turn on your camera.
I'm here. All right, I get started. Okay, thanks everyone for logging in, whether it's evening or morning for you. Great to be chatting at SF Online for the first time. So I'm going to run you through Fireweed Zinc and our Macmillan Pass project in Yukon Territory, Canada. Look, to quickly summarize, to prep you for what I'm going to be talking about. Look, there's an oncoming bull market right now. Gold and silver leading the charge, as they usually do, but what's coming soon is probably almost inevitable run in the base metal prices. A lot of that is related to cyclicality. A lot of it, is a direct or indirect impact of COVID. There's going to be an incredible amount of fiscal stimulus, 10 trillion plus possibly. A lot of that's going to be focused on infrastructure. Infrastructure means steel and galvanization and zinc. So when you're thinking zinc, our Macmillan Pass project in Yukon Territory, Canada, a real standout, both in terms of size, economics, and upside potential. And it's that those three things that's attracted some big name investors. Tech Resources, the third largest zinc miner in the world, has invested in us. Resource Capital Funds out of Colorado, one of the world's largest mining private equity funds, invested in us. And what they're seeing is, not just that our resource as currently delineated is impressive, but that in particular, this new zone we're exploring in the west of the property, the so-called boundary zone, has some true game-changing potential. And despite all that, and despite a big move off the bottom from March this year, Fireweed Zinc remains incredibly cheap. And look, to give you a bit of a primer for those who don't know, I discussed a little bit about infrastructure, but zinc, look, galvanization, alloys, brass, bronze, chemicals, etc. But what's more interesting, probably the big demand drivers right now, look, you have infrastructure. This is bridge, this is buildings, you have automobiles, critical demand there, but you do also see zinc as an emergent technology in grid scale battery storage. And that could be something that very much shifts the supply-demand balance landscape. And, ultimately, the average investor may not think zinc is particularly interesting, but in 2018, Arizona Mining was bought for 2.1 billion Canadian by South32, making it the largest, all-cash takeout of a single asset non-producing junior in the last 5 years. And that's kind of what, the sort of numbers that Fireweed aspires to. So, our resource as of 2018 was about 1/3 of what the Taylor Hermosa project, Arizona Mining's project, was at the time of their takeout. But what I want to show here is how we're closing that gap and how we're hoping to overtake them. So with that in mind, look, just quickly, for those who want to know about these sort of things, still pretty tight share structure, 55 million shares outstanding, strong board led by John Robbins of the Discovery Group. And, for those who are not familiar with the Discovery Group, this is a group of companies, really like-minded companies, focused on delivering shareholder value. You probably would have heard of Great Bear and the recent success of Kodiak, but some other great companies there as well. And, this plays into our corporate philosophy of creating long-term value, focusing on treating the shareholders with respect, and keeping, management to have skin in the game. This is not a lifestyle exercise for us. Our chairman has put in $500,000 into the company this year alone, and that keeps our interests aligned with the average investor. And so, okay, on to the project. Located in eastern Yukon Territory, Canada, accessible via the Canal Road, and gives us deep sea port access to Asia at Skagway in Alaska, as well as access to railhead in northern BC, which can take us potentially, to send concentrate to Tech Smelter in Trail. the 2018 resource and preliminary economic assessment, or PEA. These were very good numbers. Now, what I've been trying to encourage people to consider is that anything, whether it's a resource update or a PEA or PFS, is a snapshot at a point in time. We did these studies at a time that our property was about 1/10 the size it is now, and included only two zones, the Tom and Jason deposits that we bought off Hud Bay. So at 11.2 million tons indicated and 39.5 million tons inferred, at about 10% zinc equivalent, Tom and Jason combined are a very sizable resource. And that fed into a preliminary economic assessment, which was, had a healthy after-tax NPV and IRR, and very importantly, a long multi-cycle mine life. But since that snapshot, a lot has changed. We've had 3 seasons of drilling. This has expanded and improved the resource at Tom and Jason. We've made a discovery and rediscovery of some additional zones in the area that have not been included in the resource and therefore not in the economics. We've done additional engineering. And quite importantly, we've seen a government commitment of about 71 million to our access roads. This is directly offsetting costs that we had loaded into our capex for the study. So even if we were just to rerun that study today, it would look substantially better, notwithstanding the additional zones we've been exploring. And so to give you a conceptual idea of what I mean by additional zones, so you can see in the southeast or lower right corner of this map, Tom and Jason, that was all that was included in the 2018 resource and PEA. We have 2 additional known zones, the end zone and the boundary zone, which could substantially alter the resource. And of particular interest is the boundary zone. Boundary zone, what really got people's attention last year, this has been an area that had seen limited historic drilling by Caminco, which is now Teck, back in the 80s. But we came in here with a bit of different thinking and produced some truly spectacular results. So 230 meters of 4.1% zinc, that's true thickness from surface. And the first 100 meters of that are around 8% zinc. So this is a zone that lower grade on average than Tom and Jason, but super thick intersections, very large potential tonnage. And locally, when it's high grade, is very high grade. So within that intersection, 6.5 meters of 42.5% zinc. So this got people's attention because this is an area that had been overlooked quite a bit in the regional exploration, and something that past owners here, past owner, which was Caminco, didn't really understand at the time. And when we were looking at the mineralization styles there, now Tom and Jason are what you would call a classic SEDEX style deposit, and so shale and barite hosted, finely laminated, whereas boundary zone is very different. So this is vein, vein breccias, matrix infill, etc. This is much more like a hydrothermal zinc with lead system. And it's not like, it simply is not a SEDEX deposit. And it's not like something we had seen before. And it got us thinking, okay, well, what is this like? What are the deposits out there that have something that looks like this, particularly on this sort of scale? And we came to the conclusion that the mineralization resembled something that sits underneath the main ore bodies at Red Dog. They call it the vein ore. You don't see a lot of this preserved at Red Dog because it's sheeted thrust there, and the bottom of the deposits tend to get clipped. But it was quite interesting, the similarity, and our investors at Teck, their geologists, agreed that there was definitely some similarity there, and they were quite taken by the similarities, even down to the multi-phase, multicolor sphalerite mineralization. And so that, the discussions with them and our own work helped us produce a conceptual model of what boundary zone could be. What we're drilling and what's exposed to boundary zone now is a feeder system. So these are the veins, the breccias, the pervasive replacement, occurring in coarse clastic rocks and volcanics and diamictites, etc. This is not what you see at Tom and Jason, and is not what is the bulk of mineralization at Red Dog. But nonetheless, if this feeder style hydrothermal system does feed into a massive barite horizon, you can get replacement of barite and significant presence of massive zinc lead sulfides. So we've been doing a lot of, with that in mind, we've been doing a lot of exploring around the boundary zone area because we just didn't know how big this hydrothermal system is. We knew it was pretty substantial over a, pretty wide area. You can get everything from very material drill intersections to sniffs of sniffs of mineralization. So we've done a couple gravity lines over the boundary zone last year. This produced a pretty clear response because of the associated siderite alteration there. And then we followed that up this year with 50 line kilometers of gravity, and that produced something very intriguing. So that produced a continuous gravity anomaly, not just over the core boundary, which is about 350 meters of strike, but another couple hundred meters to the east and a good 500-600 meters to the west. And we followed that up with drilling in the western end of that anomaly, which hit significant mineralization, which we had announced a couple weeks ago. Now, assays are pending on that, but we're pretty confident it should look good. To give you an idea of what we consider to be significant, there were some old Kaminko holes north of there. Now that we see with the benefit of the gravity, we're a little bit off target. But, those hit sort of 10 meters of 10% zinc equivalent in one, and about the other one had about 40 meters of 3% zinc in the other. So they're interesting intersections, but we didn't consider them truly material for boundary zone given the scale potential there. And even beyond boundary, we have 6 or more known targets that need maturing and following up on. And that's something we intend to be doing in the coming years. And we believe this is a true district. To claim you have a district takes more than just a district scale land package. It takes multiple deposits. We have 4 known deposits, and we have 6 other, highly valuable targets. So this is something that, is going to play out in the coming year or so that will demonstrate the staggering scale of the mineralization on this property. And we explore that scale by looking at the regional structures, following up with geochemistry and geophysical corroboration, and to build drill-ready targets. And all of this ultimately plays into maximizing the value of the company. So you take the 2018 PEA, you strip the cost of the road funding off it, thanks to the government funding announcement this year. You integrate engineering optimizations, resource expansion at Tom and Jason. All these things improve the NPV. You get a maiden resource on boundary zone, integrate that into the mining plan. That should massively improve the NPV. And then if there's any joy given on the exploration elsewhere at those targets, that could also substantially move the NPV. And what we're fundamentally trying to accomplish here is, as we wrap up the drilling this year, we've kind of got some sense of the scale of the opportunity at boundary zone, which is not tens of millions of tons, but 100 million tons plus that we think the opportunity is there. Next year we'll drill that off to define it. And what we're targeting is a early 2022 new global resource and updated PEA. That should basically give us a true tier 1 project, a large multi-cycle mine life, first or second quartile costs, and a project that could be a top 10 global zinc lead producer. That's it. Thank you very much. Kai, we'll go to questions if there are any.
Fantastic.